The Decretum Gratiani, also known as the Concordia Discordantiae Canonum or Concordantia Discordantiae Canonum, is a collection of canon law compiled and written in the 12th century as a legal textbook by the jurist known as Gratian. It forms the first part of the collection of 6 legal texts, which together became known as the Corpus Juris Canonici. It was used by canonists of the Roman Catholic Church until Pentecost 1918, when a revised code of canon law promulgated by Pope Benedict XV on the 27th of May 1917 obtained legal force. Overview. It was about 1150 that Gratian, teacher of theology at the monastery of Saint Snabor and Felix and sometimes believed to have been a Camaldolese monk, composed the work entitled by himself, Concordia Discordantiae Canonum, but called by others Nova Collectia, Decreta, Corpus Juris Canonici, also Decretum Gratiani, the latter being now the commonly accepted name. He did this to obviate the difficulties which beset the study of practical, external theology, the study of canon law. In spite of its great reputation and wide diffusion, the Decretum has never been recognized by the Church as an official collection. It is divided into 3 parts. The first part is divided into 101 distinctions, the first 20 of which form an introduction to the general principles of canon law. The remainder constitutes a Tractatus Ordinandorum, relative to ecclesiastical persons and function. The second part contains 36 causes, divided into questions, and treat of ecclesiastical administration and marriage. The third question of the 33rd causa treats of the sacrament of penance and is divided into 7 distinctions. The third part, entitled De Consecratione, treats of the sacraments and other sacred things and contains 5 distinctions. Each distinction or question contains dicta Gratiani, or maxims of Gratian, and canons. Gratian himself raises questions and brings forward difficulties, which he answers by quoting auctoritates, canons of councils, decretals of the popes, texts of the scripture or of the fathers. These are the canons. The entire remaining portion, even the summaries of the canons and the chronological indications, are called the maxims or dicta Gratiani. It is to be noted that many auctoritates have been inserted in the Decretum by authors of a later date. These are the Pallia, so called from Por Capelli, the name of the principal commentator on the Decretum. The Roman revisers of the 16th century corrected the text of the decree, and added many critical notes designated by the words Correctris Romani. The Decretum is quoted by indicating the number of the canon and that of the distinction or of the cause and the question, to differentiate the distinctions of the first part from those of the third question of the 33rd cause of the second part and those of the third part. The words de poen, de poenitentia, and de cons, de consecration are added to the latter. For instance, c. 1d, she, indicates the first part of the decree. Distinction she, canon 1, c. 1, de poen, vi, refers to the second part, 33rd cause. Question 3, distinction vi, canon 1, c. 8, de cons. 2, refers to the third part, distinction 2, canon 8, c. 8, c. 12. 3, refers to the second part, cause 12, question 3, canon 8. Sometimes, especially in the case of well-known and much-quoted canons, the first words are also indicated. G. Si quis suadent diabolo. 17. 4, i.e., the 29th canon of the second part, cause 17, question 4. Occasionally the first words alone are quoted. In both cases, to find the canon it is necessary to consult the alphabetical tables that contain the first words of every canon. Author. Gratian was a canon lawyer from Bologna. He flourished in the mid-12th century. Little else is known about his biography. He is sometimes incorrectly referred to as Franciscus Gratianus, Johannes Gratian, or Giovanni Graziano. For a long time he was believed to have been born at the end of the 11th century, at Chiusi in Tuscany. He was said to have become a monk at Camaldoli, and then he taught at the monastery of St. Felix in Bologna and devoted his life to studying canon law, but contemporary scholarship does not attach credibility to these traditions. Since the 11th century, Bologna had been the center of the study of canon law, as well as of civil law. After the Corpus Juris Civilis was rediscovered in Western Europe, Gratian's work was an attempt, using early scholastic method, to solve seemingly contradictory canons from previous centuries. Gratian quoted a great number of authorities, including the Bible, papal and conciliar legislation, church fathers such as Augustine of Hippo, and secular law in his efforts to reconcile the canons. Gratian found a place in Dante's Paradise among the doctors of the Church. He has long been acclaimed as Pater Juris Canonici, a title he shares with his successor Raymond of Penafit. Textual history. The Vulgate version of Gratian's collection was completed at some point after the Second Lateran Council, which it quotes. Research by Anders Winroth established that some manuscripts of an early version of Gratian's text, which differs considerably from the mainstream textual tradition, have survived. With later commentaries and supplements, the work was incorporated into the Corpus Juris Canonici. The Decretum quickly became the standard textbook for students of canon law throughout Europe, but it never received any formal official recognition by the papacy. Only the Codex Iuris Canonici of 1917 put it out of use. Research by Anders Winroth shows that the Decretum existed in two published recensions. The first dates to sometime after 1139, while the second dates to 1150 at the latest. There are several major differences between the two recensions. The first recension is a more coherent and analytical work. The second recension places a much greater emphasis on papal primacy and power. The second recension includes Roman law extracts taken directly from the Corpus Juris Civilis, whereas the first recension does not demonstrate substantial familiarity with Roman jurisprudence. These differences led Winroth to conclude that Roman law was not as far developed by 1140 as scholars had previously thought. He has also argued that the second recension was due not to the original author of the first recension, but rather another jurist versed in Roman law. However, Winroth's thesis of two Gratians remains controversial. This field of inquiry is hampered by ignorance of the compiler's identity and the existence of manuscripts with abbreviated versions of the text or variant versions not represented by Winroth's two recensions. One of these is the manuscript St. Gall, Stiftsbibliothek, 673, which some have argued contains the earliest known version of the Decretum, but which other scholars have argued contains an abbreviation of the first recension expanded with texts taken from the second recension. Effect. Gratian himself named his work Concordia Discordantiae Canonum, Concord of Discordant Canons. The name is fitting. Gratian tried to harmonize apparently contradictory canons with each other, by discussing different interpretations and deciding on a solution. This dialectical approach allowed for other law professors to work with the Decretum and to develop their own solutions and commentaries. These legalists are known as the Decretists. These commentaries were called glosses. Editions printed in the 15th, 16th or 17th centuries frequently included the glosses along with the text. Collections of glosses were called gloss apparatus, or lectura in decretum. Systematic commentaries were called summa. Some of these summa were soon in circulation as well and obtained the same level of fame as the decretum itself. Early commentators included Porcapelli and Magister Rolandus. The most important commentators were probably Ruffin of Bologna and Huguccio. Less well known was the commentary of Simon of Bisignano, which consisted of the glosses on the Decretum and the Summa Simonis. Peter Lombard borrowed and adapted from the Decretum when discussing penance in his sentences.